This is You Ask Us. We'll do our very best to answer as many listener questions as we can. I'm going to kick off one for you. Here we go. This is from Nick. What does it mean for the Labour MPs who have lost the whip? Can they go to conference, use Labour Party resources, etc.? What about their constituency office? And how likely is it that they will be allowed back in when their 6 months is up? So about 5 questions in there. Go for it.
Being a member of the Labour Party is different to being a member of the Parliamentary Labour Party. Obviously, the Parliamentary Labour Party is just for MPs, but you can be suspended from the Parliamentary Labour Party, so be an MP who has had the whip suspended, while still being a member of the Labour Party. They're kind of completely separate. And the prerogative to remove or suspend the whip from MPs is with the leader of the Parliamentary Party, is with Keir Starmer, is with the Whip's office, whereas membership of the wider Labour Party is sort of completely separate. They've got processes and committees and different parts of party infrastructure to do that. So the MPs who had the whip suspended for rebelling against the government on the 2-child benefit cap, they are still Labour Party members. And so, yes, they can still go to conference.
Well, as non-party members can.
As non-party members, yes, but they can still go to the party conference as party members. And actually Jeremy Corbyn, who sat as an independent MP for 2.5 years after he had the whip suspended, he still went to conference. He's still a party member. And actually, if they want the whip back, they have to remain members of the Labour Party, and they have to continue to vote with the Labour Party to sort of hope to get it back. So it's a little bit like, I don't know, being on the naughty step. If you're not part of the Parliamentary Labour Party, but if you are very good and you show us how loyal to Labour you are when your suspension is up in 6 months, maybe we'll let you back in. They still have their offices in Parliament. They still have their constituency offices. I don't think they're allowed to be part of groups that are specifically for Labour MPs, but it's kind of like a halfway house.
And the offices in Parliament are, because that's just down to the status of being an MP, they're not party political in any way.
Well, they're sort of party political in the sense that offices are assigned to the parties and then it's up to the whips to distribute them. And we had David Gauke on the podcast when Natalie Elphicke crossed the floor and defected from Conservatives to Labour, and he was sort of talking about some of the logistics of all of this. And she did have to literally move offices because she had switched sides. But defecting, which is a really dramatic and radical and also long-term thing, is different from being suspended, and this is a temporary thing. There is a mechanism for them to be allowed back. There have been cases where there have been MPs who've had their whip suspended while there's an ongoing investigation into their conduct, who have had it restored. And when Boris Johnson suspended the whip from 21 Conservative MPs who didn't back his Brexit deal, 10 of them then got the whip back. So this is a thing that happens.
So we know that about half did in that case then of the in the Conservative Party. How likely, in the last bit of Nick's question, how likely is it, do you think, that those 6 will, the 7 will get the whip back in 6 months' time?
I think quite likely. I think this was a statement from Keir Starmer about discipline, but it's obviously a relatively minor infraction in the sense that they were voting for a policy that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves themselves have said is Labour's ambition at some point. It's not a betrayal in the way that I guess Boris Johnson read his own MPs voting against his Brexit deal was. And I think it's to send a message, and it is to try and head off future rebellions. So I think if they are good and they behave, and I'm obviously using that language because that is the kind of vibe of this decision, then yes, I think they probably will get the whip back. However, if in that time they make a lot of trouble and make a lot of statements to the press about how unfair everything is and how much they oppose everything the government's doing, the decision might be different. It kind of brings us on to a question that we've had from a YouTube viewer, also on the subject of party discipline, which is, how do you reconcile the extreme lack of tolerance for disagreement, aka the left, from Starmer, with the claim made by Andrew Marr that Starmer told him how he hoped the new Statesman would be a critical ally and hold Labour to account while in office? because all his bad decisions are when he's made them alone. Actually, that's something that Keir Starmer said at the New Statesman summer party, not just to Andrew Marr, but to all of us assembled there. All his bad decisions are when he's made them alone. And this YouTube viewer asks, surely MPs from his own party who disagree privately or publicly are fulfilling this role of being a critical friend?
Well, I think it's a great question, because I was very surprised to see the whip withdrawn for rebelling. Now, the official line, I understand it, that came out of number 10 was that this was a unique circumstance, because actually this was an SNP amendment, but actually it was a vote on the King's speech, effectively, which is, as we know, the core legislative agenda for any government. And we were 17 days into a brand new Labour government, and all of those MPs have fought to be elected on a manifesto which did not mention removing the two-child benefit cap, and also there was lots of discussion about it in the campaign, and it was very clear that while they weren't fans of it, that they were not going to do so until the economic situation allowed for it. So I was very surprised, and it was reminded me of a quote, which is, it's really hard for a referee to maintain a red card 7 seconds into a football match. And I was surprised, because it does smack of intolerance. MPs rebel all the time, not all the time, but it's pretty common. Jeremy Corbyn did it frequently throughout the Blair and Brown years, and he wasn't kicked out of the party. So I think this YouTube viewer has got a point. I think it leaves the Prime Minister in quite a tricky situation now, because what does he do next time somebody rebels? You are allowed to disagree with elements of your party's policy, in my mind. What about you?
Well, I agree that it's difficult to maintain, because what do you do next time? And if you've used that punishment so early on, then you don't have anything left in the tank, as it were. I think the point about it being King's speech legislation, I can see the validity of that, because if a government can't pass its King's speech legislation, then it's not a government, and it's
almost a confidence motion in a way, isn't it?
Essentially, yeah. But on the line, what Starmer actually said, which is he wanted critical friends around him. I think there is a difference between challenging and questioning a government, or your own government, or your own Prime Minister in private, or even publicly saying, I am for this, and I wish that the Prime Minister were doing X, Y, and Z, and voting against it. I think you can challenge a government and make your position very, very clear and say, I think that they should go further on this. And one of the things I want to do as a new MP in Parliament is to be able to make that case to the Prime Minister daily, that I think this is really important. You can do that without voting against them. And I think it was the discipline over the rebellion does not necessarily mean he doesn't accept criticism and challenge. It means he's being very disciplined about rebellions. So that's my half-hearted defence of Starmer there. But I do see this listener's point, and I do see your point as well. So the next question comes from Ben, who says, thank you for the social housing episode. It was excellent. Oh, thank you, Ben. You're very kind. And he asks, do you think the Blair government carefully chose to ignore the housing issue because they thought doing anything would alienate middle-class voters? It seemed that way at the time. What do you reckon?
I don't know if I might dodge the question slightly, because I wouldn't want to say what the Blair government thought if that's not what they said. But
they didn't build enough houses.
They didn't build very many houses, and in fact, there were fewer social homes when they left office than when they were first elected. I think there's 655,000 fewer social homes after 13 years of Labour government. So it's not a great record. They did maintain right to buy, which obviously was brought in under Thatcher, and as a result, councils across the country lost 484,000 homes, which again were for the people most in need. A further 107,000 council homes were demolished during the last Labour government, and a series of other measures were made. So I think Ben, I can totally understand why he thinks that the Blair government it certainly was not a priority for them to extend housing provision for the poorest in society. Whether that was an active, willful measure, I wouldn't be so bold as to say so.
I was 7 when Labour came into power in 1997. I wouldn't want to assume that the mind of Tony Blair, but I think there was also a sense that you didn't need to focus on social housing, because everyone was getting richer and getting better opportunities anyway, and it didn't matter. And because the economy was doing very well for a long time, it didn't. So I wonder if there was a sort of naivety about the very pressing need for social housing for the poorest in society, because on paper everything looked like it was getting better.
Yeah, I mean, there were some strange features though. For example, so councils weren't allowed to apply for these social housing grants, so they couldn't actually build new council homes. Only housing associations could do that, which of course are also means-tested properties, but it was taken away from local authorities. And then we had this encouragement of buy-to-let landlords, who obviously profit from renting their properties out. So it's a good question, Ben, and thank you again for your kind comments. We will pass those on to those responsible for that episode.